Hi, and welcome to the Sunday School Breakdown. I'm your host. I'm Wilman Murphy, and I'm one of the Sunday School teachers here at the St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church. We're located at 2870 Headland Drive. That's in East Point, Georgia. The 303, the 4, and the 4. Our senior pastor is the Reverend Dr. Clayton Eugene Taylor Sr. And our co-pastor is Reverend Christopher E. Taylor Sr. And guys, you know what? Collectively, we bring you greetings and good tidings from the St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church family. Oh yes, we do indeed welcome you to another edition of the Sunday School Breakdown, the world's most unique Sunday school experience, bar none, also known as the SSBD. We thank you dearly and severely for tuning in yet again to another Sunday school lesson, another Sunday school experience. We thank you. But do me a favor. Call your friends, your co-workers, your family members, and just let them know that the Sunday School Breakdown, oh yes, it's about to go down. Guys, we have a good lesson today. Part 2 of EZRA. Last week, they went and made it back to Jerusalem. They started building on the temple. But then opposition came up against them. Before I go there, we're in the book of Ezra, chapter 6, verses 1 through 12. Our spring semester, lesson 2. Ooh, I'm ready for spring. I don't know about you, but I am ready, free to worship. Isn't it wonderful to be able to worship freely? The prayer in hands. Let's go there. And we're going to use one of my buddy prayers today. Guys, let us pray. God, you alone are all-knowing, present, and all-powerful. You are the God who created the heavens and the earth, the sun and the moon, all of creation. All people will come to know your glory and your goodness. Please help me to submit my will to yours so that I can fulfill the purpose you have created me for. Dear Lord, help me to live a purpose-driven life. It is in the name of thine Son, Jesus the Christ, we do pray and ask it all. And let the church say, amen, amen, and amen. Nice little prayer. Oh yeah, the St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church, guys. You know what? We are open for your spiritual business. Please come out and worship. But if you can't, Facebook Live, 10 o'clock, Sunday mornings, Eastern time, that is. Will you join us? Will you come? Or will you watch? The choice, well, it is yours. You guys in March, happy birthday to you. And keep on marching on. And to the lesson. It's a good lesson. It is Liberating Passover, Unit 1 in our spring semester. That's our theme. And today's lesson is going to be in chapter 6, the book of EZRA, verses 1 through 12. I'm going to start out by reading from the book of EZRA, chapter 5. And I'm going to start with verse 8. And I'll probably read from 8 all the way through to 17. We'll see how it goes. And yes, I will be using the Dad's Bible. Some good old-fashioned plain talk for fathers. Yes, the Father's plan. After all, isn't God our Father? This book came from the late Deacon Charlie Taylor. He gave this to me years ago, and I've been using it ever since. It's a good book, very simple. Here's the way it went down. Is where they asked King Darius, the present king, if the Israelites have the proper permission to rebuild this temple. I need a little music. No, that bouncy stuff is not going to work with the scriptures. We have done this before. I need something dark. Yes. Thank you. That will work. The book of Ezra, chapter 5, verses 8 through 17. The letter that went to King Darius from the governors. To King Darius, greetings, may you have peace. Verse 8, King Darius, you should know that we went to the district of Judah where the temple of the great God is. The people are building that temple with large stones, and they are putting timbers in the walls. And they are working very hard. And they are building very fast. We asked their elders, who gave you permission to rebuild this temple and these walls? We also asked for their names, and we wrote down the names of their leaders so you would know who they are. In verse 11, this is the answer they gave to us. We are the servants of God of heaven and God of the earth. We are rebuilding the temple that a great king of Israel built and finished many, many years ago. But our ancestors made the God of heaven angry. So he handed them over to Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, who destroyed this temple and took the people to Babylon as captives. And 13. Later in the first year, Cyrus was the king of Babylon. He gave a special order for this temple to be rebuilt. Cyrus brought out from the temple in Babylon the gold and the silver bowls and pans that came from the temple of God. Nebuchadnezzar had taken them from the temple in Jerusalem and put them in the temple in Babylon. And King Cyrus gave them to Sheshbazzar, his appointed governor. Cyrus said to him, take these gold and silver bowls and pans and put them back in the temple in Jerusalem and rebuild the temple of God where it was. So Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundation of the temple of God in Jerusalem. And from that day until now, the work has been going on. But it is not yet finished. And 17. See if King Cyrus gave an order to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem which is in Judah. Then let the king write us and tell us what he has decided. So these somewhat haters actually were trying to stop the work of the temple. But you know, Cyrus actually put it into place. But Cyrus was stirred up by the hand and the spirit and the heart of God. And now that brings us to our lesson, chapter 6, verses 1 through 12. During the reading, I know you've been watching the picture behind me, this piece of art. Will you meet me at the wall? Oh, please. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a silly day, guys. This piece of art I call the 3 R's. Remember back in school, we had the 3 R's. And for you educators, I know you know what they are. Let's say them together. The 3 R's. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Well, I call this picture the 3 R's. God gave them instructions to do what? To return, to rebuild, and lastly, to restore. The 3 R's. Return, rebuild, and restore. In our lesson, chapter 6, verse 1. Then Darius the king made a decree, and search was made in the house of the rose, for the treasures were laid up in Babylon. Remember chapter 5 and 17 from the book of EZRA that I just read. They asked Darius to go and form a search and look for the words of Cyrus and see exactly what Cyrus said. What they were actually doing was wanting Darius to validate the words of Cyrus that came by way of Sheshbazzar. And verse 2, right about there. And there was found at Akmadah, in the place that is in the province of the Medes, a roll, a scroll. And therein was a record thus written. What they asked Darius to do was, Darius, we want you to call out the CSI team. Darius, king, the present king, the current king, the third king of Persia. We want you to get CSI, and we want you to investigate the scroll. See if you can find what King Cyrus had left so we can validate what these old Jews are telling us. We want to stop the progress. We're going to use forensic files to determine if they have rights to be here, rebuilding this palace in Jerusalem. By the way, say it with me, which is in Judah. They want Cyrus to do the research. Now, look at this. They found this scroll in Akhmeda. The lesson text says that this is 285 miles away from the palace in Persia. In modern terms today, 285 miles isn't that long, because many of you have these super fast cars that can just knock that out in a few hours. In fact, if you drove the average speed of 75 miles per hour for 285 miles, so we take 285 and divide it by 75, that gives us 3.8 hours. So in less than 4 hours, you could be there. But in Darius' time, mail didn't travel that quickly. So while the letter went from Jerusalem to Persia, the people in Jerusalem kept working. You see, over in chapter 5, it said that they were working, and they were working fast, and they were rebuilding it quickly. Well, they kept working while the letter was traveling over. And then once Darius got the letter, he sent people from Babylon to Akhmeda, 285 miles, and they did the research. So they found the documentation. And now it has been delivered back to King Darius, the third king, in Persia, at the royal palace. He has a team of experts, and they are dissecting the scroll, the roll. And here's what it says. Verse 3. Hey, Cyrus. In the first year of Cyrus the king, same Cyrus the king made a decree concerning the house of God at Jerusalem. In the first year. Remember last week's lesson, EZRA 1 and 1. Cyrus got all this work done in the first year of his reign. They made a decree. Cyrus made the decree in his first year concerning this house. You see, it appears that the people back in Jerusalem that's working on the temple, Sheshbazzar, Zerubbabel, same person, two names. They got lucky. You see, they found the scroll. They did. Whew, they got lucky. Or was it luck at all? And it said, let the house be built, the place where they offered sacrifices. And let the foundations thereof be strongly laid, the height thereof 80 cubits, and the breadth thereof 80 cubits. So the height and the breadth of it is going to be the same distance. 80 is 60. 60 cubits is about 90 feet, I think. I should have looked that up. Oops. I'm sure somebody will let me know. About 90, 92. Somebody will let me know. I know. Should have looked that up. They're rebuilding God's temple. Cyrus said the foundation should be 60. Actually, the foundation should be up to 60. It could be smaller, a little bit less, but it is not to exceed 60 cubits, 60 cubits. And the height, it can be up to 60 cubits, 60 cubits, but cannot exceed that. You see, if they made the temple too big, it just might be a threat to the ego of King Cyrus. So he gave them the measurements. In verse 4, not only did Cyrus tell them the breadth of it, how thick it should be, he also told them how tall it would be. But he also told them the materials. Make the foundation solid. Put in 3 rows of great stones and a row of new timber. What's the purpose of this? Will you guys meet me at the wall? Please. Oh, I know you guys. Stop talking about me. I hear you. Here's the purpose. That area was susceptible to earthquakes. And so by having a strong foundation and putting in 3 rows of stones and a row of new timber, it's supposed to be able to withstand the shakiness of an earthquake. After all, they're building the house of God. And God is instructing Cyrus on how to tell his people to build the house. Remember, you are the temple. There will be some things that will try to shake you off of your foundation. Not necessarily earthquakes, but we will have some life quakes that will try to knock us down. This piece of art, I'm going to try to stand out of the way because I don't want that big tree to fall on my head. It'll probably give me a knot. I heard you. Someone just said, if that tree falls on your head, you're going to have a lot more to worry about than a knot on your head. But here's what I call this piece of art. Timber! Oh Lord, it needs some help. Guys, I did make that appointment last week, and you see I really need it. And not only were they going to build this house, God's house, with the right materials, from what I hear, 3 rows of great stones and a new row of timber. This is going to be expensive. Who's footing the bill? 4B, right about there. And let the expenses be given out of the king's house. Whoa. So God is telling Cyrus to tell Darius to remind the people back at Jerusalem, those governors, that they are footing the bill for the expenses of the temple. There are taxes at the city level that's going to roll up to the king, and the king is going to use that money out of the treasury to pay for the work that's happening in Jerusalem. After all, the property is where? It's in Jerusalem, which happens to be in Judah. In verse 5, and also let the golden and silver vessels of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar took forth out of the temple which is at Jerusalem, and brought unto Babylon, returning what belongs to God. After all, these are God's properties. They're giving it back. The gold and the silver. You see, as you are going through your trials and your tribulations, and listen, you are going to go through some trials and tribulations, regardless of who you are. Life doesn't matter. Life itself is not a respecter of persons. But we are to remember that we are God's properties. Yes, we're His property. God puts things back in order in due time. In 5b, be restored. Yes, He restores us, right? Be restored and brought again unto the temple, which is at Jerusalem, everyone at his place, and place them in the house of God. So all those things that were taken, all the things that the people of Jerusalem thought were lost, all of the temple possession, God restored them and He brought them back. God will restore us. And verse 6, the message to these governors that wrote to Darius. Now therefore, Tatnai, governor beyond the river, Shetharboznai, and your companions, the Ephraimites, which are beyond the river, be ye far from thence. King Darius is telling those governors that wrote to him, get far away from the Israelites. Move away from them. Allow them to continue to work on the house of God, the God that is in heaven and the God that created the earth. Leave them alone. In other words, He's telling them to stand down. stop interfering with God's work. Your temple, God has already given instruction to someone to stand down and let you go by your way, because God has a plan for you. So many times, things that could happen don't happen. You want to know why? God gave the instructions for that individual or those people or that company or whatever it is to stand down. Do not block the blessings that I have for that person. That's exactly what Tatnai was trying to do. Block the blessings of the Israelites. They were making preparations for a homecoming, building the temple. And oh yeah, they were rebuilding the walls. That's important because the walls provided protection for the temple. But God had a plan for the Israelites. And just know this. God has a plan for you. And what's for you? Say it with me, guys. It is for you. What's for me? Say it with me. Don't be shy. It is for me. No one can stop it. No one can block it. In verse 7, King Darius is telling the governors, those local mayors, let the work of this house of God alone. Let the governors of the Jews and the elders of the Jews build this house of God in his place. What was once destroyed is now on the comeback. You are the temple. Something may have destroyed your spirits, but hang on in there. Keep your trust in God, and you too will be part of the 3 R's. Return, rebuild, and restore. And verse 8, moreover, I make a decree that ye shall do to the elders of these Jews for the building of this house of God, that of the king's goods, even of the tribute beyond the river, forthwith expenses be given unto these men, that they be not hindered. King Darius making a decree, a second decree, that you provide sustenance to these men that's working on God's house, and they should not be hindered. Stop picking at them. Stop messing with God's people. And in fact, the good, even of the tribute beyond the river, you see, these territories close to the Euphrates rivers, they kept messing with the Jews. They kept messing with the Israelites. And now Darius is making a decree. He's going to stamp it and he's going to seal it with the king's ring. And once a decree is made, it cannot be broken, not even by the king himself. This is one law that the king is not above. Goods that belongs to the kings. You see, those local taxes that were being taken up by Tatnai and the other governors near the Euphrates River, but now they are having to set up and contribute to a GoFundMe account for the Israelites. They're to take the money from their own counties, their own cities, their own little municipalities, and give it to Sheshabar, Zerubbabel. God is using their enemies against them. In fact, those that were trying to hinder God's work is now funding God's work. So for our temples, when people try to block us, when people try to stop us, you keep moving on and let God work it out for you. In verse 9, and that which they have need of, both young bullocks and rams and lambs, for the burnt offerings of the God of heaven, wheat, salt, wine, and oil, according to the appointment of the priests which are at Jerusalem, let it be given them day by day without fail. Oh, God is showing out. God ain't playing with them. You tried to stop my work, I'm going to take everything you got that you tried to keep my people from getting, and now you're giving them double. You're going to give them the money, and you're going to give them the animals to sacrifice daily. As much as they need, you are going to provide. Says the law, the decree written by King Darius. Want to do it? Yes. He'll make your haters your motivators. We thought Cyrus was being good, but Darius is taking it to another level. The hand of God must be in the mix. In verse 10, that they may offer sacrifices of sweet savors unto the God of heaven, and pray for the life of the king and his sons. I see where you're going, King Darius. King Darius said he wants longevity. King Darius is saying, I recognize the true God. So I want you to give them the supplies to build and the supplies to make sacrifices. And that they will pray for me. Somebody prayed for me. By the way, that happens to be the name of the art. Somebody prayed for me. In verse 11, I also have made a decree, Darius, that whosoever shall alter this word, let timber be pulled down from his house, and being set up, let him be hanged thereon. And let this house be made a dunghill for this. Ooh-wee. Darius ain't playing. Darius is telling Tatnai and the people around the Euphrates River that's trying to block the blessings of God's people. Those that try to block him, I'm writing another decree. That if you try to block them, try to stop them, whoever he may be, we're going to take a board from his house, from his wall, from his foundation, and we're going to pull the board, and we're going to put it up. We're going to hang him from his own foundation. And his house become a dunghill. Be destroyed. That's pretty harsh. Some would say that's cold-blooded. But this is the punishment for messing with the people of God. This is the punishment for trying to stop the work of God. So if God is working in somebody, don't worry about people trying to stop you. They may delay you, but you keep on doing what God has called and chosen for you to do, and let God deal with the consequences. Cyrus made a decree. Wow. In verse 12, we're going to walk out of here, guys. And the God that has caused his name to dwell there destroy all kings and people that should put to their hand to alter and to destroy the house of God, which is at Jerusalem. King Darius is acknowledging that this house that is being rebuilt is the house of God of heaven. His name is on it. And he has destroyed kings and people that tried to destroy his house, which is at Jerusalem. And I, Darius, made a decree that it be done with speed. The king is making it plain that this is the work of God, the God of Israel, the God of Jerusalem, the God of you, the God of me. Don't you be the one trying to block someone else's blessings. Let God take control and allow God to use you to build someone up. Maybe you have been called to help restore someone else's temple. Maybe you are the person that God is using to help someone else return to God, so that they may be rebuilt by God and thusly restored by God. Be the person. King, Is that okay with you? Is that lesson all right? We do all right today? We did? Okay, thank you. This lesson truly had the heart of God in it. And wherever the heart of God is, also is his hand. Guys, that's our lesson for today. That's all, folks. Next week's lesson. EZRA, part 3. Look at this, guys. Today's lesson was EZRA chapter 6, verses 1 through 12. Next week's lesson, EZRA chapter 6, verses 13 through 22. So we're going to finish it out. We're going to close it out. Okay, lesson 3. Free to celebrate. Last week's lesson, the people had returned, the first R. This week's lesson, they are rebuilding, the second R. Next week's lesson, they are free to celebrate because the temple is complete. That's restoring. Let's get out of here. Oh, yes. Cue up the music. Let's go. Thank you for watching the Sunday School Breakdown, guys. I'm your host. I'm Wilman Murphy. And I appreciate you dearly and severely. Do me a favor. Until next week, be blessed, be safe, and by all means, be encouraged. Stay thankful and always grateful. Ooh, I'm supposed to moonwalk. Ha 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 ha.